Thank you guys. So for those of you that missed what I said, I have a young adult child who is graduated last year. So part of the discussions that we're having is that my advice is vastly different from my husband's advice to her, and it's causing her some confusion. So for those of you that have young adult children or adult children, how do you handle that situation? Not necessarily going to agree with my husband. I mean, that's why you married somebody that you don't agree with, right? That's the whole point of marriage. I'm just kidding. But what do you guys have to say about that? Anybody? Or are you saying I'm on my own?
So this is Kola. Um, what I think about that is sometimes I think before you speak with them, first probably ask to know what the spouse think about whether they have spoken to the spouse and what they thought about it, so that when you present your view, you can also align it or let her conspicuously know the difference in your thoughts. So
Mhm.
that takes her going away with some results on, okay, I just need to go and sort through this because I already know it's clear that you've been able to acknowledge to her either there was a difference or there's a way to align the differences and all that. That might help her to be able to sort through. Get that, at least that's what I do in most cases with my kids.
All right, thank you. I will take that into consideration. So talk to my husband first and say, what would be your advice on this? And then try to align it before talking
Before
to
you speak with her. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. And as we says, teach them all they can use to navigate this world and let them go find out. All right, that's good. Jonathan, my son just put his first home under contract. Woohoo! As his agent, he knew to follow your advice. Exactly. See, my daughter has her first property too. She's a tenant, is a condo. So they just assessed all these capital expenditures. So now she doesn't have any cash flow, and she was panicking. I told her that usually it's not, it's not permanent. It's usually for a couple of months. And then after that, she starts to get back to cash flow. But see, Jonathan, I told her she should listen to only me and not her dad, but she would not listen. So I'm going to leave that alone.
Hey,
All
I
right.
could offer some suggestion. I have
Okay.
I have 5 kids, and what my wife and I do is the person that has the most expertise in one area is the one to offer the advice.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we will get started. Today we're supposed to be featuring a client, and we have Keith James on today. So Keith, welcome. Michael, if you're here, can you come on as well, unless you wanted to stay in the background? So today I want to talk about a few things before I bring Keith on. We're going to talk about investment property. Let me get this thing here so I'm looking over here. So we have investment properties and then retirement planning. So I did send an email. Let me look for it where we have three investment properties. Let me share my screen. There you are, Michael. How are you? You're muted.
Sorry. I am great. How are you?
Fine, thanks. All right, so we have three amazing investment and rental opportunities. You should have gotten this in your email. If you did not and you're interested, please reach out. These are just different clients who send us stuff and ask us to advertise for them. So the first person has a duplex in Cumberland, Maryland. If you're interested in investing in Cumberland, price point is 215. Just send me an email and I'll forward it. The next one is from Frank John. He was here on last week. He is the person that's the appraiser. So he does have a deal in Cape Verde, West Africa. So if you're interested in international real estate investment, feel free to reach out as well, and I will forward this information. And then the third one is rental apartments in Baltimore. I think Jonathan is also the listing agent. Jonathan, did you want to talk about that real quick? Are those three still available? You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, they are available. They're in multi-unit properties in Baltimore City. So we have two that are on Calvert Street that are one bedroom, one bath. One is right now listed for $1,275 a month, and the other one is $1,250 a month. $1,225, and we actually dropped them down $25 each. So the one that there says $1,300 now is $1,275. The one that says $1,250 is now $1,225. And then we have one on Holland Street. It's a studio, and these are Cola's property who's on here as well. That one is renting for $10.99. So they're great opportunities. They're in great condition. So if you know anyone that's looking to rent in Baltimore City, we'd love to coordinate a time for them to go by and take a look at them and get an application going for them.
All right, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know that I had sent a blast, I think it was during tax season, but some Baltimore housing that was looking for different housing opportunities, they called back and said that they're full because a lot of y'all were calling them, and they were able to get everybody that they needed to be placed. So that's a good thing. The next thing that I want to talk about is retirement planning. Did you know that it is possible if you set up a defined benefit plan that you are able to contribute up to $265,000 to the defined benefit plan? If you didn't know, just put in the chat and say, I did not know. I wanted you guys to be aware of this strategy. This is something that we use as what we call our advanced tax strategies for our clients. So most of us know about the regular retirement account where you can do like 7,000, and then like the solo 401k where you can do up to 63, SEP IRA about the same amount. But the defined benefit plan, you are able to contribute up to $265,000 per year. So it's not just for large corporations. It's an excellent option. Let me share my screen here so that you can see. This was just sent out by my colleague, Harry Plack. So I wanted you guys to be aware of it. For business owners, especially if you have stable profits and you have experience, you're an experienced owner or manager, and staff that is generally newer to the field, then you can consider this. It requires you to make contributions for at least 3 years and ideally 5 to avoid penalties and make the most of the benefits. There is a lot that is involved in setting it up. So this is why we only offer it as an advanced strategy to our clients. So we really only have maybe about 2 to 3 people that take advantage of this every year. It's not a one size fits all. So there are different retirement accounts that you can set up for your business. So make sure that if you haven't already scheduled your annual business meeting, that you have that scheduled, and that you're taking advantage of the year-end tax planning, because it's during year-end tax planning that we take a look at the income that you've generated for the year to see how much you can put away into a retirement account. All right, so I'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions about what I've shared so far, or any questions from last week before we bring Keith and Michael on? See, a lot of people did not know that. So can you imagine being able to put away that amount of money into a retirement account? All right, no questions. So we are going to switch gears. So I want to welcome Keith, James, and Michael to the chat. We had Letitia Harrison, who is part of this team. She is unable to join us, so I will have them introduce themselves. So Keith, start by telling us a little bit about yourself, how we got to know each other. Then you can also introduce Michael. I'll let him speak, then I'll start to ask questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. First and foremost, thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate it, Barry. Community is super important, and creating community and collaboration over competition is super important as well. So glad to be a part. Keith James, 1/3 managing partner of the Coalition Properties Group, headquarters in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill, #1 real estate team in Washington, D.C. By unit count and volume. We sell since 2019, we've sold over 1,700 homes, over $700 million in real estate volume. And most importantly, we facilitated over $1 million to charity. And so I started selling real estate in 2017. It's my passion. And my passion in life is to be the bridge to help people get to where they want to go. And our mission statement, our company mission statement is be the bridge to our community for all things real estate, lifestyle, and wealth building. And on that wealth building piece, I started buying real estate at the age of 23. I'm just stepping out on faith, right? And bought my first property, and it was kind of like a real estate bug that bit me. I just continued to buy, and I started buying in the neighborhood I grew up in. And the reason I started buying in the neighborhood I grew up in was because there weren't people that looked like me owning real estate, and I wanted my friends to kind of see me buy real estate and understand that we don't always have to be tenants. We can also be landlords. And I met Iberi, I think, through Nate Joy. Nate Joy introduced her. I was at the gym. Nate and I go to the same gym together. And I was like, man, I'm really in need of a tax person. My taxes are in shambles, and I'm looking for someone to help me out. And he immediately said, hey, call Iberi. She does my taxes. She's amazing. And, we've been together for the last 3 years, and she's helped my business, not only my tax strategies, but helped my business grow as well by introducing Letitia, who's helped me, since last year, really get things in order. And one thing about it, if your personal business is not in order, the business that make you money every single day, your capital engine, that's going to fail as well. So I'm just thankful for the relationship. And Michael here, I call Michael my gatekeeper. He knows any and every. I think Michael, we've been together what, 5, 6, 7, how long have we been together?
Since 2020.
Since 2020. He helped me tremendously make sure my books are in order. Not only does he do the books for me, but he also does the books for my company, Coalition Properties, and 2 of my business partners. And he's from the nitty gritty. I think systems are important. I wasn't a huge systems guy. So it's important to get people around you that can help you. I'm more of a face-to-face people person, implementer, things of that nature. But systems were not my thing. And I'm thankful for Michael because he really helped me get my systems in order to make sure that I'm not bleeding as much. He's the person that tells me, Keith, you got to stop spending so much, and it's important to have people like that in your circle, because if you continue to have yes men around you, you're going to bleed to death. And so that accountability is super important, and I'm very thankful for it.
All right, thank you. Michael, you want to let us know a little bit about yourself and how you met Keith, and
Yeah.
What have you seen with investors over the years?
Sure. Yeah. So thank you, Barry, for having us on. So I actually got my start working for my brother's real estate team about a dozen years ago at this point. And, so I come into the accounting and bookkeeping and fractional CFO space from the perspective of working for large and very productive real estate teams. So these are typically, the typical team that we work with does between, sort of our bread and butter is between $1 million in gross commission income up to about $4 to $5 million in gross commission income. And the reason we work with so many of those teams is because they have a lot of complexities, right? So this is where we come in and we can really help a company like Coalition because they have a lot of team members, they have a lot of employees, they have a ton of variables when it comes to their reporting and their projections and things like that. So we're almost like the sort of like the financial operating system for those companies. And that's where we've really found that we add the most value. We're not we're not the best solution for folks who are kind of in their startup phase in real estate. But if they're a really high achiever like Keith and his business partners, then we slot in really well as someone that they can trust and leverage a lot of their reporting and back office too. So that's what we focus on. From sort of an investor side, what I will say is that I don't think I have any of our top 20 clients who is not themselves invested in real estate, right? So these are real estate agents, and they're running highly profitable sales teams, but they all understand that their profits are very well protected and diversified in real estate. And the tax advantages of being both an active real estate professional and owning real estate are tremendous, right? And part of my journey has also been sort of supporting those business owners when they go out and start to build a portfolio. I'm not helping necessarily with the tax or the strategy, but we're helping them with the organizational part and how to think about it. And then some of our clients have even gone on to form, growing and fairly profitable property management companies if they build a big enough portfolio. So property management has its own set of accounting, sort of technical challenges, the biggest being trust accounting, that you're dealing with other people's money. But, you sort of see that journey. If you have a tremendous revenue generation engine, like a highly productive real estate sales team, then being able to channel that into real estate investments to protect the assets that you're building. And then even if you want to go further and go into property management, it's a very natural and good evolution if you can do it.
Thank you, Michael. If you guys
Welcome.
have any questions, please post or unmute yourself. I will continue to ask them questions throughout. The reason why I brought them on is because I wanted to talk about the power of having the right team in place. And so we wanted to kind of share our journey, right? Like, how did this team come together? And what are some things that we've seen over the years? What has worked? What hasn't worked? And what advice do we have for other investors, right? So for me, the first question is, which Keith has already answered, how did Keith even get to know me? Keith got to know me from a referral from another client. And Nate has been with me for almost 10, 15 years now. And one of the things that really worked well with Nate was being able to invest using his solo retirement account. He's retired now. Like, Nate is living large. And Nate also does a lot of charity work. He's actually the one that would come in every summer and teach the kids for the summer camp how to invest in real estate. So all my kids were attending that. So just having a good relationship with other investors. So if you're not plugged into another real estate club or no other investors, I would highly suggest that you get to know others, or even just reach out to your CPA and ask for a referral. Bigger than that, if you know anybody, because most of you here are already clients, but if you know anybody who is invested in real estate, but they're kind of like an outlier out there on their own, you need to encourage them to build their community, get to know other investors. A lot of things that I'm doing today is from other investors. I never knew that I would be offering my services to real estate investors. I was just working with one person, but by being part of the DC Real Estate Investment Club with Sherman Ragland, that's how I got to start offering my services to all of you. So it's important that you surround yourself with the right people so that they give you the right referrals. Like anything that I need now, I know that I can call on A, B, C, D, E. There's somebody that I almost always can call on and that I trust that they're going to give people the right information and not rip people off. So Keith and Michael, what do you guys have to say about that in terms of having other real estate investors that you know that you have relationships with that you can leverage off of to build your real estate career or portfolio?
Um, that's super important. We do a lot of events for our past clients. We have our past clients, and then we have our VIP clients. And a VIP client is a client that have sent us in the last 365 days 2 or more referrals. Right now, when we put these people together, what we found is that they go out and create businesses and create LLCs and things of that nature, and they come to us for their real estate needs. Like they might have bought one house or invested in one house, but when they collaborate and come together, we believe in the power of partnership. And I said it earlier. I always speak about collaboration over competition. I call Nate Joy all the time when I'm doing deals. Right? Why? I've been buying deals since I was 23 years old. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure people can see my blind spots as well. And that vulnerability in business is super important. And I think most of the time when you're talking to other investors before they're doing a deal, a lot of us don't like to be vulnerable with our business, but I don't mind. Me, Barry, I'll give it to you like, hey, man, I need help. You know what I mean? Am I doing this right? And I want to make sure I have those people in my world that have done it before me, right? That may have done more than me, that may have done, that is a specialist in certain areas. So I can go to them and, for help, but also when they need help in certain fields too, I'm being there for them and showing up for them is super important because that energy in your circle like that is super important.
Okay, Michael, you have any contributions?
Yeah, I would say that this is not specific to knowing real estate investors, but I think that if you're building any business, right, if you can just serve one niche really, really, really well, and even if over time, you're not going to be perfect, but if you can just continue to serve one niche really, really well, your brand will grow in that niche, right? So it's really important to pick the community that you want to be a part of. So for me, it's not even a geographic community necessarily. Like we have clients all over the country, but they fit sort of the general profile of, a high volume sales team with a need. And what we've also found out is like they need to be for it to be a long-term partnership and relationship, our clients need to be very learning based, right? Like they need to be very much like building something. That's what, like I've been with Coalition through sort of boom and bust times in the market, right? And you see the phases that the business goes through and the struggles that they go through, and then the personal growth that happens as a part of that. So I think it's really important to surround yourself with folks who are really, really like humble and on that learning journey, because otherwise you will just be totally exhausted by working with them. So that's sort of my take on it.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions here. Thank you both. What would be a good amount of properties for it to be a good idea to start a property management company? So I don't know which of you wants to take that. And then I want to also ask Jonathan, because I know Jonathan also has a property management company, if he can also address that.
I would.
Keith, you go.
I don't know the answer to that question, to be honest with you. So
I think my perspective would be property management is a very challenging business. And I think folks don't necessarily realize how challenging it can be to be done at a really, really high level. And I think that, so I don't run a property management company, and it'd be great to hear from someone who has, but I just, when I see it and I've experienced it, through the lens of helping people with their accounting setup, you realize like it is a tremendously, high touch customer service oriented business, and you're dealing with, tenants and landlords. So your systems have to be incredibly dialed in. Your accounting has to be incredibly dialed in. The expectations have to be super dialed in. And I think that takes that takes time. So I don't think doing it at a high level and actually making it a profitable enterprise is certainly not to be done lightly. Now, if you want to emulate some of the practices of good property management companies by self-managing your own portfolio, I think that's really good, right? Steal ideas from really good property management companies if you have a small portfolio and you want to self-manage them, because those property management companies have honed those systems over time. And they're very good at it, and they do it because it works.
Jonathan, do you want to take this too? Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I mean, as someone's starting to build their portfolio, you're going to want to do it first yourself so that you know what to expect and how to manage a property management company once they take over for you. But once you start getting the lashes on your back and you don't want to, deal with the headaches of tenants calling you with every little issue and having to coordinate maintenance and going after people that are behind on rents and all that, that's when you can start looking into, using a property management company. But, I always tell people when they're first building a portfolio, do it yourself. You can, obviously save a little bit of cash flow by doing it yourself, but always factor in when you're buying a property to factor in whether it's 8 or 10% that a typical property management company is going to charge. Factor that in when you're buying a property so that when you are ready to turn it over to a property management company, that you're not going into a negative cash flow situation, that you still will have cash flow. But do it yourself first so that you know what to expect and how to manage that property management company once you do hire them.
Thank you. My response to that would be, it depends on what you think you can handle, because you very well could have a property management company where you're just managing for one other person or two other investors. It doesn't have to be huge. So like, Jonathan said, like Michael said, it's just really think about what you can handle on your own. And then once you iron out all the kinks of being able to handle it on your own, are you comfortable doing this for other people and charging them a percentage? So you may just have 2 rental properties and you're like, I'm ready to manage somebody else's own. And there just might be one investor out there who has maybe 2 other rentals, and that's all you're doing. You're managing yours and you're managing 2 others. So I don't think it's really about the amount, but the experience. And are you able to handle everything that comes with property management? Like for me, collecting the rent, going to court, oh my goodness. Having to go and file by the 5th day of the month when that rent doesn't come in, getting that midnight call, are you comfortable getting the midnight call on your properties? Now, are you comfortable getting that call on 2 other properties? If you have to do tenant turnover, all those repairs and being able to get the right quotes, are you a person of integrity where you're not? Because one thing I've noticed about some property management companies is they're more like a glorified repair specialist. I'm just being honest what I've noticed, where there's a property management aspect, but then they also have this repair aspect, and they're not really concerned about the investor. So making sure that before you go into the property management business, would you be concerned about the investor and making sure that the investor can return a profit? Because the goal of every business is to make money, not spend money. So it's not necessarily just sending 3 repair estimates and then picking the one that, because the person or because that's your company. I've had some property management companies that our clients have had to fire because they were sending all these repairs and some of those repairs were not even necessary. Like there's other ways to get things done and still keep the business profitable. So that would be my suggestion. The next question is, how many properties do you own? Did you want to say something, Keith? Go ahead.
I would just say for people who are looking into the property management business, like for myself and my 2 business partners, we partner with a big property management company, a 50-50 deal. They were out of Philly and they wanted to get into the DC market because we had people and we know a lot of investors and we are a big real estate sales team. They partnered with us and said, hey, all you have to do is refer the business over, right? And we'll take care of the rest. Well, you know, that was pretty helpful for us because we didn't have to worry about creating a company that we had to do everything, but we could just use our expertise and what we're good at is bringing the people to the company for them to sign up for the property management company. So that's also another option, you know, power and partnership.
Great idea. Find your niche and then refer out, you know, something that somebody else is good at. So Wayne has a question. How many properties do you own to be considered a real estate investor? I don't think it's about a number of properties. Now, I think, well, I'm going to answer it from a tax perspective because I think you might be asking a tax question. But if you're asking a general question, then I'll see if Michael or Keith have an answer. What I think you're asking is how many properties do you own to be considered a real estate professional? For the tax IRS code, for you to be a real estate professional, you need to spend at least 750 hours in real estate, more time in real estate than in any other active profession. So you need to meet those two requirements. One, you spend at least 750 hours in real estate. That's about 14 hours a week. And not or more time in real estate than in any other profession. If you meet those two requirements, then you're considered a real estate professional. Now, the real estate professional designation only matters if you make over $150,000 from your regular income, like AGI, and you have rental losses that are being limited. Now, if you're not able to claim those losses, they're suspended. It's not lost, it's just suspended until later on. So there really is no amount per se for you to be considered a real estate professional. It's just whether or not do you make over 150, do you have rental losses, and do you spend at least 14 hours a week, 14 hours a week, yeah, 750 hours a year, and more time in real estate than in any other active profession. If you want to consider short-term rentals, the requirements are a little less for that. You have to spend at least 100 hours actively managing the short-term rentals, average of 7 days or less, renting out, you know, doing the short-term rentals, average of 7 days or less for the whole year. And then also that you provide incidental services. So if depending on which real estate strategy that you want, there's tax requirements for each one. So I think that might have been the question that, okay, yeah. So that's the question that you wanted to, okay, somebody says, I have a property in probate. Can I rent it or sell it while in probate? Does anybody have an answer to this question? Because I don't know.
I know you can sell it if you're the sole owner, if it's been, you know, passed down to you, you can sell it, sell the property. I've sold properties that's, you know, the probate has to be done, like you know, it has to be, the attorney has to have told you, you can now sell this property because there's a proper procedure that has to happen before selling. I think Jonathan.
It's with court approval. Yeah.
Yeah, court approval.
Yeah, it's got to be court approved, and you also have to make sure that if there are any other heirs, that they are in agreement.
Yeah.
All right, Michelle, can you let us know if you're considering this, where is this property located? Because there might be a couple of people here who could reach out to you to talk some more about it. So just let us know either the county or city and state where the property is located. The next thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of forming a team is one, Keith, when Keith joined us, he signed up for the wealth building program and we met, you know, regularly to say, hey, how are things doing? And I realized Keith is an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs, they don't like to do back office work. They want to go out there, they hustlers, they doing their stuff. He already has Michael, and we're like, what is it that we have here that is missing? And what we realized was that Keith needed a personal assistant. So one of the things that we did was to talk about, hey, should you, and initially he wasn't open to it, but later on he was like, yeah, I'm going to try it out. So I'll let him speak for himself in terms of how he made that decision for us to consider bringing in a personal assistant. And then I'll share how we brought in the personal assistant, what she does, and then what advice that she has for other investors.
Yeah. And that's funny because I was like, nope, immediately. I'm good. I don't want any extra expenses. And reason being because that was in a time where the market wasn't great, you know. And what I didn't understand and learn, I learned that what my personal assistant was going to do for me was help expedite my goals and get me to my goal faster. And I can focus on what I need to focus on. And she really took a lot off my plate. And, you know, for a personal assistant, and actually call her an executive assistant now because she's grown so much. I go look at the things that I don't like to do and the things that I don't want to do. And I say, hey, Leticia, like, here you go. And now she knows my systems and we have regular check-in, 9 a.m. in the morning. I have to do a dump out of my head, you know. And that's another thing too. I was afraid of that I wasn't as organized to give her. And it was more so a me thing and not a her thing. Like, how do I even delegate? You know, because sometimes when you have a delegation problem, that's hard to do. You know, how do I delegate and what do I delegate? And so what I said was, I have, and I was kind of forced. I have to do this. You know what I mean? Like, it's imperative that I do this. And when I do it, I just went back to that vulnerability. You know, what don't I like to do? What do I need help with? And so I went and looked at everything I didn't like to do. I took a list, and I also looked at where I was bleeding at. And mainly where I was bleeding at is organization and paying my taxes on time, right? And that was very hard for me to do. And you know, this is like, I'll be super honest with you. This is the first year where I paid my taxes when the W-2 people paid me. You know, like that has never been done. I've been in real estate since 2017. You know, and I'm thankful for that. And that's something that's you know, that is big for me because I brought Leticia on last year, right? And in that short amount of time, you know, things changed for me, and I was able to focus on my business and not have to focus in my business so much, you know. So I don't know if that answered the question,
Yes.
but
Yeah, so one of the things that usually happens is that when we make recommendations, it could be, oh, you need, you know, you can't be doing your books, or maybe you can't manage your properties, or maybe you need a personal assistant. Usually there's the resistance simply because of the cost and whether or not there's going to be value. But what happens as a business owner is I usually tell people try it out. Once you see the value, you would know that this is a critical part of building your business. So that was one of the things that we told Keith was, hey, you know, you might say, I don't want to incur this additional cost. I'm going to do this myself. Or, you know, I don't have the money to pay, but you're kind of limiting yourself because if you are able to hire somebody, it increases your capacity to do more. So the question now is, how do we find this person? And so what happened was that, you know, I have staff of about, let's say about 20 regular staff between full-time, part-time, and then we have revenue share partners. And I have a staff, Leticia, who used to work for me full-time, but she's moved out of state. She's no longer here, so she's no longer coming in person, but she still does work for me every now and then. And I was like, you know what? I think I might have the ideal person for you. She used to be my personal assistant. She still does some work for me, but it's not a lot. Let me reach out and see if she has the capacity to take on one more person. And we reached out, asked her, and she was available. So they've been working together for the past year and a half. And I see how things have fundamentally changed by implementing some of the suggestions that we made during the wealth building plan meeting that, hey, you need to get an assistant. So, you know, I asked Leticia here, I'm just going to read out what she wrote. I'm like, how do you see your role? And she says, it varies greatly depending on the need of the business owner. With one owner, for example, his needs are just me putting in about 3 to 5 hours a month. And his primary need is simply bookkeeping. And then she said, we speak via phone or text as often. In comparison, my other PA role is a little bit more involved. We're in daily communication, and my overall goal is to anticipate his need and make his day-to-day more manageable. I do such things as arranging travel, assisting with payments, home refinancings, maintaining and organizing files, tracking deadlines. And this is about 15 to 20 hours a week, depending on the needs. So pretty much personal assistant.
That's me. That's me. That's me, by the way.
Yeah, so the personal assistant role varies based on the needs of the investor, so it's not something that you have. So she has access to my personal information and I trust her. And then I have another personal assistant, which is more of everybody in the office is busy on Teams. I need somebody that's dedicated to me. Anybody from anywhere is able to access it. It's the same with bookkeeping. A lot of people are on the quick cloud-based business in general, where everything that you have is stored in the cloud. For document safekeeping is important. Is part of what an assistant can come in and help do, which is to systematize your process, helping you create SOPs, document. A lot of you have business. What if you systemize business? Assistant, but haven't moved forward in doing so, just do it. Your work-life balance will change drastically for the better. So that was Letitia's feedback in terms of having a personal. With Keith that a personal assistant has accomplished for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, it just gives, she's like the sort of, right? She us all on the same page about, like, hey, A needs X, Y, or Z. Hey, a reminder that like we need, we need to make sure that we have these things. In a role, you have to find someone who is willing to just keep up with you. And that's what I've seen. And also I will say that the key, right? Like, he is the captain of his ship. These are his finances. And so he can't just, he can delegate almost everything and build a ton of structure, but they will have tons of support, so many things that would take them too long and that take them away from like their, top 20 focus. For Keith, like what would take him out of networking and sales, right? He leverages all of that, but then when it's time to talk about strategy, when it's time to make a decision about taxes, things like that. Keith has really sort of embodied his role of ownership at a really, really high level. And then that's allowed other decisions to fall into place. The decision to, to work with a BRA, the decision to hire Letitia and other things that he's doing, the decisions that I'm seeing with Coalition and kind of what they're building there. It's all comes back to like, hey, I own this. The buck stops with me. And I will then just hold everyone to a standard. That's the other thing. It's like a, hey, I've got a standard and I'm going to hold people to that. And that's great because then the expectations for everybody who works with Keith are really clear. Okay, that's the standard that Keith wants. Like, let's go and execute. When it's like, yeah, whatever, I don't know, you tell me what to do. That doesn't work. That doesn't work because then you're like, well, I guess, I don't know, I'll throw some stuff together. I guess he wants this. I'll try and make a decision over here. You need an executive to own it and say, here's the standard. How do we get there? Right. And you can give latitude to people about getting there, but you still hold that standard. And that's what Keith does. And just his personal growth as a business owner has been pretty tremendous.
Thank you. And one of the things that I wanted to wrap up with in terms of this segment is knowing that you want to work with a CPA, a bookkeeper, an investor, loan officer, property management company, attorney that cares about you overall, not just the service that they're offering, right? This is why this is the annual business meeting. This annual business meeting is specifically for our clients that are in the wealth building program or working with us. And we talk about things that we normally don't deal with on a regular basis, like taxes. We're going to deal with that. Entity structuring, we're going to deal with that. But what are some things, additional things that I do behind the scenes to help you succeed? Right? So don't just look at us as just, oh, Ibarra is just there to help me with compliance, or Ibarra is just there to help me pay my taxes, or Ibarra is just there to help me plan or to set up my entity. You want to look at overall, how can we help you move your business to the next level, right? This is why it's almost called like we're your alternative board, where we're kind of helping you make the assessments and referring you to the right people, where even if we're not able to offer that, we almost always know somebody else that is able to offer that service. Okay. If you have any questions, please post it as we get ready to wrap up. I did want to cover something real quick that I forgot to mention in the beginning. And this is the whole thing with the whole government workers and retiring. So I just wanted to read. So I've gotten several of these emails. So I just wanted you guys to know that this is going on. You might meet somebody or, have people talking about it so you know how to engage with them. But, retiring from federal service under the voluntary retirement program, that's effective September 30th. So they're going to be paid their current salary. And then their goal is to see if they're able to get a job in a private sector prior to September 30th. They're going to be getting some anticipated annuity. And then the annuity after reductions for their survivor benefits, they've given us the amount. Same thing is going to be happening with their spouse. They're filling out the retirement paperwork and wanted to know what their federal and state withholding is going to be. So we're helping them with that. We have another client who, as a result of doing the voluntary retirement program, they now want to invest as a general partner in a syndication, and they want to understand what is it that they need to do, and how are they able to set up the retirement plans. So these are the kinds of analysis that we're doing. So if you're meeting people who have, that are worried about what does this mean, what we tell people is, hey, let's settle down and do this analysis for you so that you can see what would the picture be before and after, and what kind of withholdings and what happens after September 30th under that voluntary program. I think that's about all that I have. Okay, so Michelle posted where she has that probate property in DC. If any of you are interested, you can maybe take her information or chat her privately Do we have any questions for us as we get ready to wind up? Okay, see, there you go. So let me do this. I'm gonna see, this is how Letitia comes in. I'm gonna let Letitia know that she needs to connect Keith with Michelle Robinson on her probate property. Okay. All right, any questions? Any final thoughts, Michael? Any final thoughts, Keith? Anybody who has any other questions or stuff? Anything about just general administration that you have as you run your real estate business?
Just don't be afraid to be vulnerable with your business and ask for help. You know, ask questions. You don't know, you don't know. My mom always taught me as a young kid, ask, if you don't know, ask, you know? And I think that is for most business owner, when you're asking questions and vulnerable with your business and willing to share, you know, where you're bleeding at and willing to share where you need help at, you're gonna come out on that you're gonna come out on the other side of that temporary pain, feeling a lot better and stronger.
Thank you. All righty, it looks like we ended things early. Michael, do you have any last words that you want to share with our?
Nope. Let everybody go, but thank you, Barry.
All right, thank you. So thank you everybody for joining us. We have one more meeting and that's it. So we will be sending out the YouTube webinar replay for this. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week. I'll stay on if anybody has any questions, but other than that, I'm releasing you guys, let's see, 4 minutes early today. All right, have a good rest of the day. Take care, bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.